You Not Me podcast with Chris Behrmann. Thanks for listening. Today we're going to be talking about something that was even the subtitle of Chris's book, The You Not Me Mindset. A mirror for your past, hope for your present, a light for your future. A lot of Chris's work has to do with not only acknowledging your past, but also healing from it. Chris, something that you're very passionate about is just reminding people that their past doesn't have to determine their future. That's something that they've done in their past, whether it's a mistake, whether it's them hurting themselves, or even being hurt by someone else, doesn't have to determine the trajectory of the rest of their life. So in today's conversation, we wanted to focus on just identifying who you are now, the importance of that, but also talking about building a vision for who you want to be as you move into the future and as you take on the rest of the years in your life. So Chris, welcome in today.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's always great to chat with you and to discuss these ideas that I think are really, foundational and formational for people, especially, people in their early 20s, just graduating from college, just starting their first job out of school, maybe just engaged, just married, just had their first child. Just, so much of this is trying to arc people back a few degrees towards what a great and amazing future is. Because 5 degrees or 10 degrees change in direction can mean a huge just difference in where you end up over 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So excited to talk about this. And again, we all have a past. We're all sitting somewhere presently, and then we all have a future that we want to run and walk towards.
Absolutely. If we want to start maybe just with a quick dive into dealing with your past. Everyone has a past. Some are maybe more painful than others. Some people have maybe been able to heal and move on from things that they've experienced in their past, while I think everyone probably knows someone in their life who has either been the victim of some kind of suffering or injustice at the hands of someone else, or, maybe they've hurt themselves through poor life choices or a lack of wisdom. If you're someone that's in that situation, how do you approach healing from your past, dealing with your past, acknowledging where you've been, but not losing hope?
Yeah, I think, one of the, you said it exactly. I mean, there are very, very many different ways that, hurt and pain has come from our past. And some of it's just trials and just circumstance that has nothing to do with yourself or anybody else. It just happens. I know a big part of my past is the 2007 and 8 real estate market when everything crashed. And we lost everything financially, but also at the same time, our youngest son was diagnosed with a retinoblastoma. And those were unbelievably hard times to where I just felt the waves just continuing to crash over me and couldn't get my feet to stand up. And just wave after wave of hard trial circumstances. And it was one of the most painful times of my life, one of the hardest times. But I look back now and through that suffering, through the scars, because there still are scars. I mean, there still are things that are reminders. But my gosh, I wouldn't change that for the world. I wouldn't be the man and husband and father that I am today if it wasn't for that suffering. And some of it is understanding that the things that happen to us, they're not always definitive in who you become, but they do define your story. They do tell your story. They do point to why you are where you are today, which is why it's so important to have a conversation with people, whether you think very highly of them or you don't think very highly of them because of the way they act or whatever, because sometimes who they are, not sometimes, but always who they are is dependent on the past that they've had. And part of it has to do with the family you grew up in. Did you have two parents that loved you unconditionally, or did you have a broken home, or did you not have any parents? Were you never told that you were loved? Was the love for you conditional? Was it when you did well in school or behaved or athletics or, had some sort of talent? When you did that well, you were loved, but when you didn't feel loved. And so there are a lot of things that can shape us. And I think the biggest thing is healing from that and saying that those chains that maybe, like if you think of like a ball and chain shackled around someone's ankle, it's a 15 or 20 pound, basically bowling ball attached to your ankle. you might be able to like take some steps forward, but it's painful, it's slow, and you can't run, that's for sure. And you need to be a chain breaker. And so one of the biggest things is really helping people understand that sometimes the people that have hurt you in your past, they were hurt themselves. You know, it's the old saying, hurt people hurt people. It's really true. And the hardest thing to do, but yet the most freeing thing that you can do, is forgive that person. And it doesn't mean that you need to allow them to continue to do it. But what it does mean is that you need to look at them and say that there's some brokenness in them, there's some hurt, there's some pain that's causing them to do it. And maybe they've never even been shown the right way, back to, again, not having a good family that has raised you well. And so taking the step to forgive people, and part of it is, if we're all honest, we've been forgiven ourselves for something. I mean, we've made mistakes. None of us is perfect. There's not a single person that can raise their hand and said that from the day I was born till now, I've done everything 100% perfectly. We're not. But the biggest thing is understanding that other people have forgiven us, and maybe they've given us a flyer. Maybe they've given us grace and mercy and not punished us or not held it against us, or, forgiven us for it and move forward. And we've been given a second chance or a third chance. And that's one of the biggest things that we can do, because I remember hearing someone say, it's, bitterness, when we hold bitterness inside of us towards somebody else or a situation that happened, it's similar to having a rat infestation problem. And instead of putting out rat poison or rat traps, I mean, if you put out rat poison, then the rat eats it and dies. But what this gentleman said is, it's basically like you eating the rat poison and expecting the rat to die. And the rat is not affected. It's just you that are poisoning yourself with bitterness. And you're continuing to walk forward in a way that isn't the best version of yourself. You don't have joy. The relationships you have are tainted by that, because you have this cynicism, this bitterness that's holding you back from, whether it's being vulnerable or really being your true authentic self and loving other people well, because you're holding on to that hurt. And so there's forgiving other people. But also too, I mentioned the real estate crisis. One of the things that I kept doing was heaping, suffering and shame and everything on top of myself, that I was like, how did I do this to my family? Like, it was my decisions. Like, I could have said no to stopping buying a certain number of real estate properties, but I continued, because I'm like, this is great. It's super smart. It's building this financial, foundation that's security for our future. And all of a sudden that security was taken away. And I was the one to blame for that. And so for the longest time, I beat myself up. And I remember this mentor, he just kind of stopped me when I was telling him everything that had happened. And he said, but I just want to ask you, have you forgiven yourself yet? And I just remember sitting back and I just like dumbfoundedly looked at him like, that's never even crossed my mind. What are you talking about? And he said, Chris, he said, until you forgive yourself for what you've done, you're not going to be able to move forward. And sure, we can set together like plans and a strategy to how to work through this, how to whittle these things down. And he said, but until you forgive yourself, you can't go forward in a positive way. And that's going to hurt how you treat your family and how you treat yourself, and, your positive mindset or negative mindset that you're going to have walking from it. So the biggest thing you can do from past pain and suffering is forgiveness.
One of the biggest hurdles, I think, to forgiving yourself, or even maybe receiving forgiveness from other people, if someone hurts you and then they come to you and they apologize, but, maybe it was an especially deep wound that they gave you. I think a lot of people are kind of hesitant to say, well, that person doesn't deserve my forgiveness. And I think that both the person who doesn't forgive themselves and the person who doesn't forgive others, they both have the same hurdle in the way to forgiveness, and that's pride. They both have kind of these two different elements of pride, though, and they're very subtle. One is kind of like the classic, if you know Zlatan Ibrahimovic, the soccer player, it's like a superiority complex where you're like, I'm better than everyone. I guess like the very top of that would be like, I'm God himself, like people who would say something like that are like, I'm the greatest. They're always trying to show their greatness to other people and to get commended by other people or praised from other people. for how great they are. Then you have kind of the other side of that coin, which is an inferiority complex, which is, maybe in your instance, or myself or other people in the past, we don't want to forgive ourselves because we want other people to see like, oh, wow, this guy like, is really open and honest and like takes the blame himself and, shoulders the responsibility, and etc. So we almost want people to praise us for kind of like our self-condemnation in a way. So both people in an irony like want this recognition or this praise from others, but just for two different reasons. But at the heart of it, it's still, I want other people to give me some kind of praise, some kind of respect, in some sense. So maybe just briefly touch on the importance of humility for forgiveness, both for the person who wants to forgive themselves and move on, but maybe also the person who wants to forgive someone else for what they've maybe been on the receiving end of and also move on.
Yeah. I think, the hard thing is we hold people to a higher standard a lot of times than we do ourselves. And sometimes we're blind to our own mistakes, and we persecute somebody because of their mistakes, but yet we want forgiveness and mercy when we make a mistake. And it's hard because so often we look for injustices when people treat us poorly, but yet if we make a mistake, we fail to see that about ourselves. And so the great thing is that regardless of, again, however the hard times come, forgiveness leads to freedom. Forgiveness leads to a joy and a peace that it doesn't mean that again, like with the real estate market, I've shared with other people many times what I've done. And the reason I shared it is so they don't make the same mistake that I did, to help them learn and not have to go through the same pain and suffering. But also it's, I don't share it and then I continue to beat myself up. Like, sure, do I wish that I hadn't done that? Of course, but also I'm not going to make the mistake again because I've learned from it. And I've chosen to go in a new and better way. And I think that's the most important thing, is whether we see someone else making a bad decision or doing something wrong, or we did something bad ourselves, it's identifying it, reflecting upon our own life, and then saying, okay, I'm going to turn and go a different direction. I'm not going to keep going down that path. And I remember hearing a story one time of this man that was walking down the street to work, and he was just looking around as he was walking, and there was this big pothole, and he fell into the pothole, and it was so big that he couldn't get out, and he had to wait for someone to help him get out. And so, that he got out, went to work. Next day, walking, same thing, just not looking around, just not paying attention, walks into the pothole again. And the thing is, it's like, okay, made a mistake, made another mistake. So the question is, do you keep going the same direction, or do you at least pay attention, or do you change and go a different way to walk to work? And I think a lot of times we forget that there's a different way. We can choose to go in a different way. We can choose to forgive other people. And some people don't ever choose that, and they put themselves in jail themselves. But freedom, forgiveness is the key to getting out of that jail. And the most important thing that we can do is take the time that maybe we have to say it verbally, whether it's out loud to ourselves or maybe to that person. And maybe we don't really fully forgive them, but that's the step to getting closer and closer to that true, freedom, because time does heal a lot of wounds. But the wound doesn't ever heal unless the forgiveness is a part of that ointment that you put on that wound. Otherwise, it gets gangrene, it gets infected, it becomes worse, and sometimes it spreads. And so, for our future and for the future of other people around us, the greatest thing we can do is forgive. But also, it's making sure that we're learning and going in a different, better direction. Because if we don't choose to figure out a better way to go, we're just going to keep making the same mistakes. And that's going to lead to more suffering for us and more suffering for other people, most likely.
Let's get up to speed then in terms of coming to the present. So let's say that, as you mentioned, everyone has a choice of, what direction do you want to go in? We have that choice every single day. That's part of why, you have this slogan of shift your mindset, is that you can make a choice at any moment, any day, any point in time to go in a different direction, to change your focus, to change your lifestyle, to change your habits, to change your relationships, how you treat other people, really anything. So let's just talk about now for the moment, someone who's in the present, they want to make that choice, they want to go in a different direction. Where do they start, and how is that going to impact their future?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing to start is with reflection, is taking time to, whether it's finding a mentor or people around you that you respect, that you look up to, you think highly of, whether it's, reading books, and trying to figure out, like, just who is it that you want to become, and then taking those steps to move towards that. And some of it again is maybe you've never seen what good looks like, what living a good life, loving other people well, because like I said before, hurt people, but also love people, and forgiven people forgive people. And so if you don't have that love, look for people, or if you haven't been loved in the past, look for people that love others well, maybe that love you, maybe that care deeply about you, and talk to them and say, like, how can you do this? Like, how is it that you're so willing, whether it's you made a mistake, or you just have a good friendship, just say, like, how is it that you're able to do that? Get some, some dialogue and conversation with people maybe that are living life well, that, like, for example, with the You Not Me mindset, like, if you can find people that you recognize are living out the You Not Me mindset, is ask them how they do it, why they do it. Um, and the biggest thing is looking at, where you've been, understanding how you got to where you are, but now in the present, saying, okay, where do I want to go? And that's why, on the cover of the book, we have two roads. You have a choice to choose. It's, do I want to go to the me, not you mindset, or do I want to go to the you, not me mindset? And, um, and it really is as simple as shifting your mindset. It really is as simple as pre-deciding that when I interact with somebody, I'm not going to react to how they treat me. I'm going to pre-decide to care about them anyway. And I'm going to pre-decide that, you know what, there might be one thing that's happening in their life that I don't know or see right now that is a thorn in their side, or a deep pain and despair that's causing them to lash out, to be rude, to be, whatever it is. Again, back to, you talked about inferiority, there are confidence issues that lead to arrogance and boastfulness, which is really like a false sense of, false confidence, false bravado, because they're just trying to make up for how not confident they aren't. And so it's just learning from those people and saying, you know what, I want to have humility. I want to be forgiven, and I want to also forgive other people. I want to see the good in people that maybe they don't see in themselves yet. And I want to try to make people's day better. And so how can I see the need around me? How can I, when I interact with somebody that maybe seems down, how can I be an encouragement and lift them up? Or how can I just be kind? Whether it's as simple as saying hello, smiling, opening a door, holding a door. I mean, there are so many ways that are simple that you can do this. But more importantly, it's looking at the people around you that you interact with on a regular basis, whether it's your friends, your family, your colleagues, people on your sports team or in school with you, whatever, and say, how can I build into other people, and really make their day better? So that's part of, the hope for now, is trying to be, how can I be significant in someone's life today? And also, if I want to be successful in life, what can I choose? What can, there are a lot of things that are out of our control, but I can be successful in how I choose to treat people. And so if I choose to be kind and proactively be kind and treat people well, I can, at the end of the day, sit down and rest and have a peace that I at least was successful in what I tried to do today. Maybe some of the things didn't work out, whether it's, playing for a sports team and playing well, maybe you had a bad game or work wasn't great, but I can choose how I treat people, and I can encourage people when they've made a mistake. And so in the present, what direction do I want to walk towards? Who do I want to become? What are some examples of people that I really admire? And it's so funny when we look at movies and we have this pop culture of, celebrating these movies about a person that's a hero or heroine of some sort, to where they've actually put the needs of others above themselves, and they've gone out to make a difference. Whether that's, you look at different, I mean, look at Marvel movies and Star Wars. I mean, people love these characters that stand up against evil and do things to protect and to save and to make the world better for others. And it's so easy for us to do that in our own life. So what examples can we find of people that truly care about and make a difference in the life of others and in our communities or workplaces? But again, I mean, you can have such an amazing generational impact if you just love your family, your spouse, your kids well. You can do that at work. If you're a leader of people, people forget that how you treat them at work has an effect of how they go home and treat their families. If you treat them poorly and they go home demeaned, they don't feel valued, they feel like they're basically a number, and you could care less about them, and they're stressed out. Well, they go home and they're not fully present to their family. They're stressed. They're not their best selves. And so they're going to be short. They're going to treat their wife or their kids or whoever it is poorly. And then when their family's not doing well because their work is so bad and stressful, they then come back to work even more stressed, because it's this cycle of stress everywhere they go. And if you're a leader of people in a corporation or at a workplace or on a sports team, if you lead, student athletes, if you're a coach, my goodness, your players, how they perform in school is partly determined how you treat them when they show up for practice every day. So can you remember that how you are treating the people around you has an effect on all these other aspects of their life? And, people like to talk about work-life balance. And listen, here's the deal with all this remote work and Zoom calls and text and email. We're constantly accessible, by our corporations. The question is, can we find a place to where we say, hey, some things are important, but also when I get here, this is important as well. And if you really care about your people, you'll want them to be fully present and love their family well, because that then makes them show up even better the next day. So again, for the present, how you treat people around you has such a big ripple effect, and how that goes out to other people as well.
Yeah, a quote I've always loved about humility is that humility isn't thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. And I think that in terms of like present choices, a really practical way for people to kind of step into the you not me mindset and kind of put their toe in the water a little bit is in a very simple way, to use our slogan, to truly shift your mindset from yourself, your own problems, your own success, your own goals, and to really get acquainted with the other people that are around you. What do they have going on in your life? And I think it's such a profound shift for people who are so just consumed with themselves. And it's such an easy thing to do because, culture has hardwired us to just pursue our own dreams, our own glory, our own success to a fault, to where we become anxious, we become paralyzed with fear. We're constantly worried. We're always on this, treadmill, whether it's in the corporate world or in the, sports world when it comes to achievement, or even like, family wise or relationship wise, where everything becomes about my gratification, my satisfaction, me getting my way. So I think that just having that definition of humility in mind, of not thinking less of yourself or having a lower view of yourself, but just having more eyes for other people and for what they have going on in their life, just makes such a profound difference. So maybe as we think now about the future, and I think that probably the direction I would like you to go with this is just talking about shifting the goalposts from your own success to focusing on other people's success, focusing on other people's dreams and their desires, focusing on what you call, being a rising tide, lifting up everyone around you. You already mentioned, just some very practical, simple ways even with strangers, that you can do that, maybe in a small way, with a smile or a hello or how are you doing. But as you mentioned before, you never know what that compounds into. So you can just talk about that shift of going from me, not you, into you, not me, and how that will impact your future.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting. I mean, that there are so many. If you look at corporate America, especially, the biggest thing is productivity. What can we get? How do we get more out of people? And the thing is like people aren't a towel that's wet that we're trying to squeeze as much water out as possible. The thing is, if we're trying to do the right thing by our people, if we're really caring about them, if we're truly making sure that they feel valued, cared for, and loved, they're going to be way more productive than if we squeeze them as hard as we can. And I think so many people, they're like, oh, but my success is dependent on my people's success. So, I need them to do this and this and this, so I can be here and I can move up and and it's like, no, the thing is if you care more about your people's success than your own, and they truly believe that, they'll run through a brick wall for you. They won't want to let you down. And their success is actually going to turn into your success. But if you have it the wrong way, if you're only talking about to them and to other people and inside on your own heart, if you're only caring about and focusing on your own success, a wall starts to be built up between you and those people, and the trust starts to fall away, and the foundation of the relationship becomes fractured and maybe even gets totally blown up. And it's so funny. I remember talking to a friend of mine that is in an insurance company, and he said, Chris, he said, if we just retained 4% more of our customers year over year, we would blow our number out of the water. And how do you do that? Well, it's you create an amazing culture that makes sure that every employee feels valued, loved, and cared for, that they have all the things they need to be successful, and that when that employee experience is fantastic, well, how do you think they interact with the customers? They're gonna dazzle your customers, because your customers are gonna feel how loved your people are. That's going to translate into how they feel loved, valued, and cared for. And then how do they treat, your company? Well, not only do they want to keep using your product, they want to find more ways to use whatever other things your company sells. And they're actually going to become your greatest salespeople, because there's nothing better than getting a totally unbiased referral to where someone, it's one thing for a salesperson to go out and talk about how great things are. But if your customers say, hey, if you need to buy X, go to this company because I have, and I'm blown away. And, when you look at customers, there's data that shows customers that have a sense of gratitude towards you, they're twice as likely to be loyal to you. But not only does it impact your customers, which impacts your culture, but actually it impacts your employee engagement and retention. Because the biggest thing is, if you look at what's happening, there's a war on talent right now. And it's so hard to find people, period, and for some jobs, but then also to find great people. And so if you have great people, you better do everything you can to hold on to them. And this isn't like hey, give everything away, but it's as simple as, again, most people want to just truly feel that they're valued, cared for, and loved, and that working towards a purpose and a common goal with a group of people that they care about. When those relationships are really authentic, there's genuine care for each other, that's when amazing things happen. And that's honestly part of the problem with culture these days is it's really hard to have an amazing culture when you have a either remote or hybrid work environment, because people aren't having those times of shared experiences as often. A lot of times it's very transactional, where you get on a Zoom call or a Teams call and you get on and you have a 30-minute or hour window and you knock your work out and then you hang up. There are no conversations beforehand or afterwards like, hey, how's your child doing in this and what's going on? I heard your mom was sick. How is she doing? Anything we can help? And you forget to learn about people outside of the workplace. And I was talking to a friend of mine today that has a number of people that reports to him, and we were just discussing about making sure, just the reminder of making sure your people feel cared for. And some of it is just setting aside, whether it's a 15-minute call like once a month or every other month, or 30-minute call, whatever it is, to where you start the call off with, how are you doing? How's your family? Because I've actually done that before, to where people then start telling me about work. I'm like, no, no, no. I don't care about work. I just want to talk to you about you. How are you doing? How are things going? What can I do to help you? And because again, it's just so rare today to find people that truly, genuinely care. That authentic care is worth more than a 10% raise to go to work for another company, or a 20% raise. Now, there are some people that say, you know what? I'd leave in a heartbeat for a 20% raise. Well, then I question, what is the culture of your company like? The best way to keep your people is not by trying to handcuff them to the job and trying to keep them any way possible to not want to leave. The biggest thing you can do is make people so well cared for and so grateful to be working for you, because they truly love what they're doing. And even if their function isn't their favorite function, if they love the people they work with and for, they'll show up every day with a full heart, and they'll go above and beyond and do amazing things. But the biggest thing you can do is just love and care for people around you.
Think as well, and we'll maybe try and land the plane here a little bit. But one of the things that people think is, oh, if I start to think about everyone before I think about myself, as that quote I referenced earlier, if I think about myself less and I think about other people more, then I'm going to have less. My own success is going to take a hit. Can you maybe explain why, just to close here, for one, that's not true, and two, actually the inverse is often the case?
Yeah, it's and that's another part of my story is when I went through the financial loss, and at the time, actually before that happened, I was kind of starting to feel like a cog in a wheel at work, and showing up in sales and just doing this dance for a company that just really didn't care all that much. And the thing is, maybe you're at a place that doesn't seem like they really care about you. Maybe it is a large corporation of like 20, 30, or 100,000 people, and the culture isn't great, but you can still find purpose in what you do every day. And that's by impacting the people around you, but even your customers. And so for me, what I made the decision to do was to no longer worry about my sales quota. And, even though a lot of times it was way too high, as most companies tend to do, but what I chose to do was truly care for and encourage and love the person right in front of me at that minute. Whenever I was present, that was my job, was to make sure that they felt cared for, and that I see them, and that they felt like they really mattered. And, sure, I would still talk about my product. I'll still try to, help with any services we had to offer. But what happened over time is that they saw, unlike most, whether it's in sales or business development, most people are just there for themselves to get something. They're there to try to sell you, to get something, to put, money in their pocket, which nothing wrong with having a job to put money in your pocket, but your heart with how you do it changes everything. And so when I decided to make sure that no matter what, I was going to do the best thing I could for my customers and for their customers, and I put that above everything else, what happened was this amazing relationship and trust was built that was better than I'd ever had before. And what happened is, not only did they see me as a consultant to help them with my product, they actually asked me with other, competing companies, like, hey, do you know anything about this product? Can you help us a little bit? Because we really don't trust the person that's representing that. And my thing is, like, I don't care if you buy from me. I'd love for you to. I mean, my hope is that I truly believe in my product, that we have the best one. But also, if I'm honest, maybe it's not a one size fits all, and mine isn't the best for every situation. There might be other competitors that are actually a better fit for you. And I'm going to tell you that. And yes, I may lose the current short-term sale, but what I've continued to do is build that relationship to where you really see, all I do is care about your benefit. And what happens is, like I said previously, they want to find more ways to not only use your product, but also, what other products do you have, Chris? Tell me, like, how else can we use you? Because we really trust you and we want to give you everything that we can. And I mean, it's like a financial advisor. One of my, best friends from college handles all my finances. I don't even look at my financial statement, my 401k and my retirement plan, because I trust him. I know he's got it. And everything I get goes straight to him, because that foundational trust is there. And so what ended up happening is at the company I was working at the time, not only did I become the top sales rep in the nation there, but then every succeeding company that I went to and new product launch and everything, I was always at the top. And I remember the CEO reached out to my manager at the time in one company, and they said, "What is this person in North Carolina doing that's so different from the rest of the country?" And so she asked me, "What do you want me to say?" I said, "I don't know." I said, "I'm doing the same thing everybody else is doing." I said, "Just the results are coming through." And she said, "No, Chris," she said, "you don't understand. Your relationships with your customers are so different." She said, "I ride with a lot of people and I see what their relationships are like. Yours are very different." And that just hit me like, doesn't everybody try to do this? And they don't. It's that intangible that if you really harness what the you, not me mindset is supposed to be, if you truly with a pure heart live out trying to love and care for the person in front of you. And again, sure, we're in sales and you need to go out and you need to sell and all that to build a company, but also the hope is that your product is helping your customers to do amazing things. But when you really do that with a pure heart, it changes everything. And I've never worried about a quota that's been put on me ever since. And I've always done amazingly well. And it's been fun. It makes work fun again. It's you show up and it's not calling on a customer, it's calling on a friend. And hopefully over time that friend becomes a family. And the same thing internally is when you're surrounded by friends and family everywhere you go, between work, between your community, and at home with your family. I mean, that's when life is just amazing. That's when you just look around and say, like, I want everybody to have this same life. How can I help to make sure people do that? And that's why we started You Not Me, is I want other people to have the same joy and just to live the same beautiful life. That, again, there are hard days. Don't get me wrong. Of course there are. But at the same time, in the midst of those hard days, you know that there's someone that loves you, that is with you in the midst of those hard times, in the midst of those trials that you can go to. When you don't have those relationships at any aspect, whether it's family, at work, friends, it's a really hard life. There's a reason people are so bitter. And a lot of it is not just because of their circumstances, it's because they have no one to go through those circumstances with, and they need a friend. And that's what we're here for, is to make sure if no one else has loved you well, we want you to see the value that you truly have and the great things you can do. And we want to be there for you. And we'll point you to more people and how to find, people that will love you well. And it's kind of like we talk about it a bit in the book. It's like the baby elephant that from, its infancy was chained to a stake. And when they would walk far enough away, they would hear the clink of that chain and they would stop, and they couldn't go any further because that stake held them in that same place. And what they didn't realize is as they grew and grew and grew to this big, powerful elephant, that when they heard that clink of the chain, they were conditioned to stop. That, why even try? I can't go any further. When just with a tug of their neck muscle, they could just pull the stake out of the ground and go run to a new and better future. And that's what we want for everybody, is to see the value they have, to know that there is somebody out there that cares for you. And there's actually a lot more. You just have to take the step to be vulnerable, to get to know people and put yourself out there. But an amazing life lies ahead if you'll forgive other people for the past, that maybe things that have been done to you. Forgive yourself for maybe the mistakes that you've done where you harbor regret and shame, as I did. But then also choose to go in a different direction and say, you know what, I'm going to look for people around me that are amazing examples of a you not me mindset. And I'm going to ask them how and why they do it. And, again, we're here for you. We want to be here to be a true resource to help you live an amazing life.
Absolutely. Chris, thanks so much for the conversation today.
Thank you.
If you've been enjoying the You Not Me podcast, we could recommend a number of additional resources for you. Chris's book, The You Not Me Mindset, is available both on Amazon and on Audible. We also have a number of free resources that are available. You can check us out at younotme.com. You can read our newsletter, the You Not Me letter, on Substack, and you can also follow Chris on LinkedIn and Instagram. Thanks so much for listening.